Get right back up again, and when we do, the world's gonna hear the roar of our engines. I'm 65 years old today. There were once people celebrated as eternal icons of beauty, talent, and power, striding under dazzling lights like gods. Yet only a few years later, they left the public stunned when they appeared with a completely different look. Some drowned themselves in hard liquor, drugs, and reckless partying that aged their faces far beyond their years. Others fell into love scandals that shattered their spirit, leaving them frail and worn out. And still others turned to extreme plastic surgery, transforming once glorious beauty into a distorted wax figure that shocked the world. So, which 15 stars have aged so quickly it's almost unbelievable? And what bitter price did they have to pay for those temptations? Let's begin with the first name. 1. Marilyn Monroe, ravaged in the whirlwind of sleeping pills, alcohol, and buried secret affairs. When speaking of Hollywood in the 1950s, no one can forget the image of Marilyn Monroe. Her golden hair, crimson lips, and the legendary white dress blowing in the 7-year itch. Life magazine once praised her as the American dream, while Time called Monroe the most powerful soft weapon Hollywood ever created. Yet few imagined that behind the dazzling glory, Marilyn was quietly sinking into a bottomless abyss, dependency on sleeping pills, hard liquor, and a string of mysterious love affairs. According to a 19th-gen Los Angeles Times revelation, Monroe's private doctor admitted she used sleeping pills like drinking water. On some nights, the star swallowed up to 4 Seconal tablets, then chased them with bourbon just to fall asleep. This habit turned her once radiant skin ashen, left her eyes ringed with dark circles, and her face gaunt like a woman in her 40s, though she was only 35. A Vogue photographer once exclaimed, "The lens couldn't save her anymore. Every flaw showed raw and unhidden." Worse still, Monroe drowned herself in all-night parties at the Beverly Hills Hotel. There, she mingled among politicians, directors, businessmen, and artists. Liquor flowed like rivers. Sedatives were passed around like candy. And Monroe, ever hungry for attention, slowly became the center of dangerous games. A former co-star recalled in a memoir, "To hide her swollen eye bags, she plastered on thick makeup until her face looked like a cracked mask." Even more devastating were her scandals in love, which plunged her into deep mental crisis. Extramarital relationships were exposed by the press. Her marriage to Joe DiMaggio collapsed in bitterness, and Arthur Miller, once thought to be her safe harbor, abandoned her, leaving Marilyn alone in despair. Journalists from the New York Times noted that she often wept on set, needing whiskey and anxiety pills just to calm down before filming. The public grew increasingly shocked by the rapid decline of the sex symbol. A photo of Monroe in Malibu in the summer of 1962 caused a sensation. Bony shoulders, sunken eyes, pallid skin. Fans could hardly believe this was once the goddess of desire. A Guardian critic bluntly remarked Marilyn then was no longer Monroe, but a weary soul trapped in a withered body. The tragedy ended in August 1962. Monroe was found lifeless in her Los Angeles home beside empty pill bottles and an unfinished bottle of liquor. She was only 36, but her face and body looked like those of a woman in her 50s, worn by decades of sorrow. A close friend wept to reporters. She lived 10 extra years in that final year alone. And if Marilyn Monroe was ravaged by sleeping pills and alcohol, Elvis Presley, the king of rock, walked down a different but equally tragic path, destroying his body with gluttony, drugs, and scandals that aged him horrifically in just a few short years. 2. Elvis Presley aged into a 60-year-old man at just 42 from gluttony. At the height of his career, Elvis Presley was more than a singer. He was a cultural phenomenon. Every electrifying hip shake on a Las Vegas stage in the 1960s sent thousands screaming. The New York Times once called him a flesh and blood revolution, while Rolling Stone declared, "No one can stir the American heart like Elvis." Yet just a decade later, the king of rock left the public speechless, his body bloated, weak, and prematurely aged. The cause lay in his out-of-control lifestyle. Elvis binged endlessly on pizza, hamburgers, pastries, and deep-fried meats. Some days he consumed over 7,000 calories, an amount that even professional athletes couldn't handle. At the same time, he depended on painkillers, sleeping pills, and amphetamines to endure his endless performance schedule. The dangerous mix ballooned his weight, weakened his heart, and distorted his body. In 1976, at a Caesars Palace show, Elvis shocked fans when he appeared in an oversized white jumpsuit. The fabric couldn't hide his bulging belly, swollen face, ashen skin, and lifeless eyes. A Las Vegas dancer told CBS he was gasping for breath before even singing. At times, we had to help Elvis sit down because he couldn't stand on his own. The whole audience froze. No one could believe this man was once a legend. Not only did his health collapse, but his reputation crumbled. Tabloids filled with rumors of affairs and strange entanglements, fueling public gossip. From a revered king, Presley became a symbol of decline, aged, sickly, and lonely within his lavish Graceland estate. On August 16, 1907, Elvis was found lifeless in his bathroom. His body, over 100 kilojoules, his heart stopped from the lethal combination of drugs and illness. He was only 42, but he looked like a sickly 60-year-old, leaving the world in shock. A close friend wept on television. Elvis left young, but he had lived in an old, broken body long before. And if Elvis Presley turned himself into an obese old man before the public's eyes, Whitney Houston, the dazzling diva, with a voice that shook the world, brought millions to tears as she fell from radiant queen to a frail, aged figure lost in addiction and a tragic marriage. 3. Whitney Houston, aged a decade from drugs abuse and a haunting death in the bathtub. In the early 1990s, Whitney Houston was hailed as the golden voice of humanity. When I Will Always Love You soared in The Bodyguard 1992. The world stood still. Whitney reached the pinnacle with Billboard records never seen before. Rolling Stone proclaimed, "Whitney is the last true angel of the diva era." But that radiant light soon dimmed, replaced by a spiral of collapse that shocked even her most loyal fans. Addiction to drugs and alcohol ravaged her mercilessly. In a shocking 2002 interview with Oprah Winfrey,